Yes, welcome back, dear viewers, to the last segment of Morning Baraka. You've just seen some key insights into a young girl's journey of realization when it comes to Muharram and Safar and the different rituals associated with that. So, first and foremost, I guess we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise a generation of Hussainis, or mini Hussainis, as the segment is called. In this part of the show, me and Zahra, we're talking to Sayyid Muhsin Shah. Assalamu alaikum, Sayyidina.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Who is shedding some light on the jurisprudential aspects of Muharram and Safar. So we're talking about many different issues ranging from the specific walk to Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the spiritual benefits associated with that, the different rituals of Azadari, for example. And
it's been quite interesting and informative. So hope the viewers have been able to keep up with us and watch.
Definitely,
and today's actually an extension of really Arabeen's discussion, and we're going to be discussing how to bring it to the West if we aren't among the pilgrims visiting.
Indeed, those lucky ones who actually got invited to go towards Karbala. And mashallah, we want to try and encourage people that even though you're not in Karbala, that doesn't mean you can't have your Arabeen and you can't enjoy the experience, and you can't have your own version of Arabeen here in your own homes, in your own cities. Inshallah.
Right.
I remember somebody, a sheikh once saying that you could be physically in Karbala, but actually spiritually vacant, and you could be very far distant, but closer, connected to the Imam than people that are actually there. So it's quite important to have that connection. It doesn't matter where we are physically, but
definitely. I mean that was the whole purpose of having the ziyarah. Was that if you couldn't visit Abu Abdullah, then from your own homes, point into face the direction and send your salutations to Abu Abdullah. That connection, to reinforce that connection, to keep that connection and preserve it, because without that, then there's not much left, is there?
And we're also, when Ali was introducing, so we've got the mini Hussainis, journey of, a little girl in this country, going through the whole Muharram experience, Arabeen. And it's important, isn't it, for our children to be involved in these activities from a young age so that they continue. It's not something that you just, at 16, turn up at the... It's about evolving your child, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, there is a ranking process, you could say, where, you start off with helping out, maybe putting shoes in the right places, helping prep the hall, to something a bit more important where you're like sorting out the sound system and the lighting, to even more important when you're organising the speakers and the Noor Khan or the Mullah to come and recite the Latmiyat, to finding donations, to run a programme, to having your own mawkib of such. And you look at all of these people who are involved in organising Majlis, they all started at a young age at the bottom of the ranks and slowly worked their way up with the experience. And then in London, mashallah, we have so many mawakib that are run by the Shabab, simply because they were involved in the Majalis and gained that experience and were able to put on such programs.
So just so that, in terms of like Arabeen in the West, there's a lot of question marks about what people see Arabeen to be, especially from a Western perspective. And I think, in a sense, it's a bit easier to describe Arabeen to a non-Muslim than it is, for example, describing bloodletting or many other rituals. But if we had to, in a nutshell, be able to explain in a Western term, using Western language, for example, how would we be able to explain the visit of Arabeen?
The visit of Arabeen, or Arabeen, the day itself, we could tell them that this is arguably the final mourning period of the death of Abu Abdullah Hussein, the grandson of Rasulullah and sallallahu alaihi wa alihi. And this is our final farewell and final goodbye, for we may not see him and we may not get to experience him again for the following year. So this is our official goodbye and our official farewell, and our official, you could say, ending of the whole episode of Ashura, to what happened to Sayyidah Zainab, the travelling to Sham, or what happened in the dungeons and coming back.
The question is, like, people don't see that aspect of it, of the goodbye or the allegiance. They just see people walking, people giving out food, shelter. What's that? How do I translate that?
That, you could say, is you giving your service towards, Abu Abdullah, and you giving charity or doing something in the name and in the honor of Imam Hussein, that on this day we have chosen, though it is the end of the mourning and the grieving, we have chosen this day to collect everyone together and to use this as an opportunity to give in the name of Abu Abdullah and in honor of Abu Abdullah and the sacrifice that he made, that we will honor him, honor his life, honor his death, and we will, provide a service of giving charity, whether it's informing people and educating people, whether it's to remind people of what happened, of the injustice and fighting oppression, and that today we still have injustice and oppressions that we are to stand up to and face and fight.
Service is something that's actually universal, whether you talk to a person of faith or otherwise, people understand what service is. So this is our service in our faith, to the message of Imam Hussein. And I think what's important is, while we could look at these things as rituals, and we've discussed them in previous mornings, it's really about learning, isn't it? So what are we actually emulating from Ahl Bayt here? It's not the giving is a part of it, it's the generosity of the soul, it's opening our hearts. But I mean, in terms of how would you explain to our viewers of what are the moral lessons we're taking here to become better human beings?
Indeed, we have, throughout the whole of the Muharram experience and the Arabeen experience, there's an experience of self-realization, there's a period of self-reflection, there's, you relate your life to Abu Abdullah, that he's standing up to his challenges. Am I standing up to my challenges? And he was ready to sacrifice his life for Islam. Am I ready to sacrifice my life for Islam? Especially if I'm not waking up for Fajr, me sacrificing my sleep. If I can't sacrifice my sleep for prayer, how am I going to sacrifice my life for Islam? And at the same time, standing up for what is right, wherever it is in the world, and standing up for those people who have injustice and oppression inflicted on them, that we have to stand up towards them, because it doesn't matter who's being oppressed, as long as there is an oppressor, we as Muslims and we as followers of Abu Abdullah need to stand up to that. And then comes the humanitarian side, and the side of charity and giving, and that Imam Hussein's message wasn't a message just for Islam, but it was a message for all of humanity, that there has to be some sort of level of respect and some sort of level of understanding that you're a human being, I'm a human being, we have difference of opinion, and I will stand up for my rights and you will stand up for your rights. But to take that to an extreme where someone is butchered and there's no form of diplomacy and there's no form of negotiation or no form of let's meet halfway, there was just you're with me or against me, a total dictatorship and dogmatic view on society. Abu Abdullah has shown us again how, as human beings, what is really important, and how we can stand and how we can win when it seems as though we're losing.
Sorry, and I was going to say in between then, and you went on to explain about the humanitarian aspect, is that often people, these are quite, I think people become immune to sort of words such as, Imam saying sacrifice, are we sacrificing in our life? But actually when you break it down into our lives, that oppression doesn't have to be on a macro level. It could be very much on a micro level. It could be your neighbours, it could be in your family, it doesn't have to be sort of a government you're opposing and their oppression. That often it could be oppression that you see even in the workplace towards somebody else. And do you speak up? Do you defend them?
I mean, when we in Fiqh, when we discuss injustice, what is injustice? Injustice is perceived that something is not in its correct place. And a simple injustice me and you probably see on a day-to-day basis is maybe if you're on the train and there's an old elderly lady standing where she should be sitting. This is injustice. She is not in her place where she should be. She deserves this seat. Something as small as this, is what's considered to be injustice. And something as small as that is what Abu Abdullah is standing for, from the small to the macro, as you said, fighting a whole oppressive government.
But it's awakening the soul, isn't it? Because if we see these small issues happening on our daily, so if you're on the train journey, and you see somebody perhaps shouting at somebody or someone being abused in some way, I'm not encouraging people to obviously put their lives in danger, but if you don't speak up in your own way and defend somebody, how will, like you said, the bigger level is to go, well, we're waiting for an imam, how will we ever take that stance? But it is about waking up your soul at the small level, isn't it? And if you,
Definitely.
to wake up.
And I think this is why it's so important that we continue with the Majalis, that they have the 10 days, but that we continue throughout the whole of Safar, leading up to Arabeen. And also on Arabeen, if we can't be in Karbala, that wherever we are in our own cities and our homes, that we do something, that we have a program. MashaAllah, in London we have one of the biggest marches there is in the country on Arabeen. Up to 10,000, 20,000 people turn up. And we have our banners, we have our drums, we have our slogans. A lot of people take this opportunity to discuss, general affairs and agendas that are happening right now in the world, bring up humanitarian rights and also other oppressive news that we need to discuss. But at the end of the day, it's there as a community. We're all there as a community together to remember Abu Abdullah and remember his message.
And also, I think, looking at Arabeen, and we were saying in our previous morning that people who are eager to give, and we can give here as well. So whether that's a local shelter home, if that's helping people at disadvantage, maybe it's even your local Husseiniya, perhaps they need our help, and to give those funds to them, to maybe give our time to them, things to make this.
Abu Abdullah was someone who was not sheltered and laid naked on the plains of Karbala. They say up to 3 days.
Yeah.
Why not in his honor donate some clothes to those who need clothes, or donate some money for shelter for those who need shelter?
Absolutely.
Right. Just to bring everything kind of together from what you were saying in terms of the service and how we can really translate Arabeen to the West. Something that you said kind of sparked a bit of memory in my head in the sense that a lot of charities out there will do marathons.
Yes.
And the marathons will include, for example, running from one area or cycling to one area.
Swimming.
And this is revered so much by the West because it's done for a good cause, and a good cause is charity. And one of the ways that I think one of my friends was saying that one of the ways we can translate Arabeen is the sense that people do walk Najaf to Karbala for charity.
Yes.
And people are starting to fundraise
There
now.
is, yes, there is.
So
we have that brother every year who goes running.
Yeah.
He does Najaf to Karbala, he runs.
Yeah.
There was another one, I think it's called N2K, Najaf to Karbala, is another campaign that they're doing for.
So that, I think that in a way, and since they are youth that are spearheading these initiatives, we're going to talk about that a lot in the next episode, but I guess in a way of translating Arabeen to the West, it could be many different ways, but from just to conclude, I think it's the service that we want to show. People are giving from themselves, people are showing a pledge of allegiance to a man who gave everything that he had, like
Definitely.
literally everything that he had in the way of a cause, and we're trying to replicate that cause by, ideally we'd like to give everything that we can, but obviously realistically we can't. But what we can give, we try to give in the way of the same cause that Imam Hussein did as well. And trying to explain that to the West is there are some similarities in initiatives that they do, as well as initiatives that we do.
Definitely.
I mean, the West, we've known so many campaigns and so many charities named after famous people, famous sports personalities.
Yeah.
In their memory, they open up a charity. Yeah. They do good work in honor of that person. And there is no bigger person than Abu Abdullah.
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
For us, if there's a name worth mentioning and a name worth honoring in charity, for us, it's Abu Abdullah al-Hussein.
Definitely.
And it's not just Imam Hussein's stance in Karbala, it's everything that Imam Hussein represents before he passed away, and everything to do with his family, from the Ahlul Bayt perspective. And it's just the route towards the Ahlul Bayt from a Western perspective is Imam Hussein. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but from many different Western values in terms of justice or hope or freedom, whatever it is, Imam Hussein encapsulated in Karbala. But Imam Hussein is the gateway towards the rest of the Imams who also showed similar traits as well, which is always fascinating to see. I think
we're up for time this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
So we've more or less brought to a conclusion Arabeen in the West. I think as I mentioned, we're going to look at more specifically into actually the next generation in Arabeen in the West as well, and how we can
keep it revived.
Keep it revived. Perfect.
Inshallah.
Zahra, thank you.
Inshallah, we'll see you another morning. Have a blessed day.
Thank you very much, and you too as well. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Qabla a'malakum, inshallah.
On that note, me and Zahra, thank you very much for your viewership, the audience. Thank you so much for tuning in today. In the next episode with Sayyid Mohsin, as I mentioned, we're looking more into the jurisprudential context of Muharram and Arabeen. As such, enjoy the rest of your day and have a blessed day. And inshallah, we will see you next time on Morning Baraka. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.